After pumping over 50% in a single month and almost doubling from October levels, the Quant token has seen a pretty significant pullback over the past couple of days. So in today's video, we are going to discuss why I believe this altcoin has been dropping recently and whether I think this will continue or if Quant will reverse here and make its way back to the upside. And before we hop into today's episode, just a friendly reminder that I am not a financial advisor, nor do I offer any sort of financial advice on YouTube. I am simply here for your crypto news and entertainment purposes. And if you do find the videos informative or entertaining, or maybe even both, please consider hitting that sub and like button and turning the notification bell on so you can be notified when all of my latest videos go live. Now, if you are wondering why I sound like crap, well, that's because I am in fact sick. However, the market does not stop moving, the news does not stop, so neither do we. And that's going to bring me into today's video where we are going to talk about Quant. Now, you know that we've been covering this project a lot on the channel. In fact, we are really covering it a lot back here. First of all, in the bear market lows in the mid $40 range, as well as once again in October, I took a lot of interest in this project again at the $85 zone, which did prove to be a very strong buying opportunity. This chart was posted back on December 8th before we had seen that nice move from Quant up to 150. Now, if you actually take a look at this chart, we did have it right here that 151 or 150 more or less was going to act as an area of resistance. And if we take a look at what actually happened here on a shorter time frame, it did in fact double bottom at this level and has now made its way back to the downside. So I want to kind of talk about why I believe this is happening and what I think is next for this project. So if we actually zoom out here, first of all, and take a look at the coin, yeah, I mean, you can see here like a pretty clean rejection at that $150 area of resistance after trying to break above it. And it looks like now it is on its way back down to retest this uptrending channel. And the reason 150 was a pretty clean area of resistance and one that I thought we were going to have a hard time breaking above. Let me actually just remove this from the chart to make it a little cleaner. No, not that. This right here. Yeah, so the first thing you're going to notice, okay, not this line. I want this one gone. Yeah. So back here in July of 2021, this was when Quant went on its crazy run there from like, I think it was like 25, 30 bucks all the way up to $428. You can see here that it did in fact make a stop at 150 to back test it as support before continuing on that move to the upside. And then even here to the downside, Quant actually back tested 150 as support before breaking it in 2022 during the bear market. Now, during the bear market years, 150 was probably the biggest area of resistance for this project. If we actually take a look over here, this would have been in February, March, and April, where Quant did get double top rejected at 150. And the same thing actually happened here once again in the new year. It got rejected at 150 on the weekly candles, ran all the way up to 160. But if you just take a look at the weekly candles, it did get rejected here once again on two different candles. So clearly 150 has been a very difficult area of price action for Quant to break above. Now the upside to that is that if Quant does actually manage to break above 150, I mean, I do think a run back up to 227 is definitely in the cards. And that was when Quant went on that run in the bear market last year. Not last year at this point, actually, back in 2022. So in 2022, majority of the altcoin market was either flat or down between June and October. And in that time period, Quant actually ran about 450% from $42 all the way up to $228 before it got rejected. And therefore, I think once we do actually break above 150, that is going to be the next area we can expect Quant to run up to. However, in the meantime, Quant is in fact down here. I mean, after topping out at 150 in late December, it has made its way to the downside. So why is this happening? And I think there are two different reasons this is happening. So the first one is if we actually take a look at total 3, and this is the altcoin market minus Bitcoin and Ethereum. And you're going to notice here that total 3 as well has definitely seen a pretty big decline. It's actually down about 10% from those recent highs that it did put in at about 530 billion in market cap, currently sitting at about 490 billion in market cap. So we have just seen a broader pullback in the altcoin market. Now, the one thing that is worth noting here is that the altcoin market did actually see a retest of its support level back here at 440, which acted as resistance back in August August of 2022. So this retest has actually been a pretty bullish one for the altcoin market so far. Not something to be kind of like alarmed of. If we broke down and went back into this channel here, that would definitely be a cause for concern in my opinion. However, it does appear to be a pretty bullish backtest for the altcoin market, so not something I am too concerned about, and perfectly healthy even in bull trends, okay? And the second reason I believe that Quant has actually kind of seen a move to the downside is because of Bitcoin dominance. So we spoke about Bitcoin dominance a lot on the channel last year. I said that I felt Bitcoin was going to be basically an outperformer when compared to the rest of the market, as it does tend to be in accumulation years. And yeah, I mean, Bitcoin dominance here was on a tear all of last year. Okay, let's even take a look at a 1-year chart. And Bitcoin dominance kind of bottomed out at about 40%. It topped out so far at about 55% in early December. However, it has been perfectly bouncing off of its bull market support band all year long. Let me actually even just get rid of this uptrending channel, which it has been respecting. But if we get rid of that, I mean, you're going to notice Bitcoin dominance has consistently bounced off of its bull market support band, ran higher, back tested, ran higher, back tested, ran higher, back tested, and this move right here appears to be no different. Okay, so Bitcoin dominance is going on a run, which is a clear indication that, you know, basically if altcoins are dipping and Bitcoin dominance is ripping, that is basically a sort of an indicator that altcoin money is flowing into Bitcoin, and that does appear to be exactly what's happening at the moment. And that also would make sense if we consider that the big catalyst for kind of like this run that we are seeing right now is the Bitcoin spot ETF approval. Now, additionally, once the Bitcoin spot ETF gets approved, another catalyst that we do actually have on the horizon is the Bitcoin halving. Okay, so a lot of the focus right now is in fact on Bitcoin. I do think it will stay this way for the next little while, as the next two big catalysts for the crypto market both involve Bitcoin. It's the biggest one, it's the most well known, and yeah, Bitcoin dominance shows us that the trend is clearly in favor of the king of crypto. So what is happening to Quant is not altcoin specific. It is actually just sort of like a broad-based pullback for altcoins. However, I do want to kind of wrap this up by talking about where I see Quant going next. So let me go ahead and get us back on the Quant chart here. And although it has pulled back, one thing that I do kind of see in favor of this altcoin at the moment is that it pulled back to about the 113 area, and now we have seen a pretty sharp uptick from there, actually now putting itself back at 120. And 113 was actually acting as an area of resistance back in November, once again in early December, and then here in late December we saw it break above 113, back tested as support, and that started that move that we actually saw all the way up to 150. So on shorter time frames, definitely is a nice sign to see that Quant is bouncing off of that level. And if we actually zoom out here as well, I don't have 120 on the charts because to me 150 is a much more important area, and I tend to trade on longer time frames. But we can actually see here, if we put 120 down there, like 120 is also a very important area for Quant, did act as resistance on multiple occasions. So really looking to see if it can hold 120. If it cannot, it probably does want to make its way back down to the low $100 range. Now, to wrap things up, I want to take a look at the Quant versus Bitcoin pair, okay? And I want to talk about this. I think it's important to value any of your altcoins versus Bitcoin for the same reason I take a look at Bitcoin dominance, the same reason you value your altcoins versus their USD pairs. I think it's really important to measure them versus Bitcoin, because if your altcoin is underperforming Bitcoin, I mean, you may as well just bought Bitcoin. More reward and less risk. Bitcoin is less risky than the rest of the altcoin market. So if you are buying altcoins and taking on more risk than you are if you had just bought Bitcoin, obviously you want it to be worth the risk you are taking. And that's why I do think it is always worth comparing your altcoins versus Bitcoin. Now, very similar to the USD chart, there's actually a lot of similarities between the Quant USD and the Quant Bitcoin chart. And the biggest one here being is that it has also recently bounced off of this long-term uptrending channel, respecting it as a level of support. And additionally, you're going to notice here that Quant does go on these basically it goes on these periods of massively outperforming Bitcoin and then massively underperforming Bitcoin. And this happened, first of all, with the 2021 top. It actually went on to underperform Bitcoin by 82% up until June of 2022, and then bounced off of that uptrending channel and went on that monster run that we discussed earlier from 42 bucks up to 228. And that is when it once again did outperform Bitcoin, where Bitcoin was basically flat, actually down within that time period. And let me actually double check that. How much was Quant up versus Bitcoin in this time period? Yeah, it was up over 500, over 600% in that time period, okay? So after topping out there in October of 2022, that is when Bitcoin bottomed and Quant started to move downwards. Quant once again has underperformed Bitcoin by about 80% over the past year. So it definitely has been tough over the past year if you're a Quant holder versus Bitcoin, as Bitcoin has outperformed. However, on a longer term sort of outlook here, this is nothing out of the ordinary for Quant. And once again, we can see here that just as recently as December, we bounced off the uptrending channel, which is when Quant began to make its move to the upside. So we can now see here that Quant has put in a nice hammer candle back to the downside. And it looks like it may even want to retest that as an area of support. But honestly, I'm just keeping my eye on whether or not it actually breaks this area. And if it does, then that's definitely something that I will be keeping a closer eye on. But until then, as long as we remain above that area, the uptrend is intact in my opinion. So on that note, I hope you did enjoy the content in today's video. I hope you enjoyed this little update on Quant's price action. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about this altcoin. I hope you are all staying happy, safe, and healthy, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Peace out for now.